Flying DeLorean?
Hey everyone, I'm Bobby Hundreds. You're watching another episode of Dropping In. This is our weekly series on the Hundreds TV where I report live from the Hundreds home base here in downtown LA and I take you through whatever our newest drop is. If you've been following us the last few weeks, we've been teasing this project. We've actually been building on it for the last 5 years since the last time we did Back to the Hundreds. And if you've been following us since the very beginning, almost 17 years ago, you know that Back to the Future is my personal favorite movie, and throughout the Hundreds history, there have been so many references and little innuendos and secrets from the brand that reference and connect back to the Back to the Future trilogy. Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time for a number of reasons. I think when I was a kid, I was really drawn to a lot of the pop cultural aspects of it. There was skateboarding for the first time prominently displayed in a movie, rock and roll. Even the fashion choices, Nike played a big part of all of the Back to the Future movies. I wanted to just take you through the collection personally myself, explain all the items and the designs, the thought process behind this collaboration, and kind of give you a little bit of a behind the scenes of what it took to get to where we are today. As you're watching the Hundreds TV, you're watching Dropping In, you can buy along as you're watching. You can also chat with anyone else who's in the room who's watching today's episode. You know, when we do collaborations, it's not as easy as just calling somebody up and saying, let's do this. Especially with a project as big as Back to the Future, there's so much legacy and so much licensing involved with the movie studios, the actors, the producers, the writers. There's so many individuals that were involved in the making of this movie, and all of those people have to sign off. All of those people have to agree and collaborate on some of the ideas and the concepts that we're coming with. And so it is a really long endeavor. It's really complicated. It requires a lot of contracts and negotiations, but then we get to a place where we have a full collection of stuff that everybody signed off on, and for the most part, started with a simple idea of something that I personally wanted to see and the Hundreds design team wanted to see manifest through a collection that represented both the Hundreds and Back to the Future. It is the center of that Venn diagram, and that is Back to the Hundreds Part 2. This is the title t-shirt. It says Back to the Hundreds 2. This is our official logo lockup. If you notice the orange and yellow gradient, it runs across the entire graphic. It really makes the entire project more cohesive to see that Back to the Future and the Hundreds are interwoven together. So that is the title t-shirt. You can buy it right now here on the Hundreds TV as you're watching. It comes in burgundy, white, and black. I wear black t-shirts 98% of the time, so that's probably where I'm gonna gravitate to. The second shirt from the Back to the Hundreds collaboration is the Pitbull shirt. If you remember in Back to the Future 2, there's a hoverboard chase scene in Hill Valley Square. Griff is chasing Marty McFly. And Marty gets stuck out in kind of like this lake pond reservoir in front of the courthouse. There's a line that most Back to the Future nerds know where someone from Griff's side says, hey, you Bojo, don't you know that hoverboards don't work on water unless you have power? And so Griff unleashes the Pitbull, which is his hoverboard. It's this super roided out version of what a hoverboard would be in 2015. This is the Pitbull mascot or icon that's on Griff's hoverboard. We wanted it really big and aggressive. It's kind of cartoonish and loud and aggressive. It's very Griff. So this is the Pitbull shirt. You can buy it right now here on the Hundreds TV. All right, the third shirt from Back to the Hundreds Part 2 is the cover. It's a movie poster. Original artwork by Drew Struzan. He was responsible for a lot of the artwork that's associated with some of the more popular 80s and 90s movies. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Batteries Not Included, even the more obscure hits. I know him most for doing all the art and paintings behind Back to the Future. So it was really important for me to get a piece of Drew Struzan art into this collection. We weren't able to do it the first time around in 2015 with Back to the Hundreds, the initial collaboration. It took us 5 years to kind of wrestle this out of Universal. And so this one is a real milestone for me. Not just getting Drew Struzan's art, but also getting Doc and Marty McFly on a shirt together for this collection. Well, of course, if you're going to collaborate with Back to the Future, you would assume we're going to get the two stars of the movie on a t-shirt or on a hoodie somewhere. But it's not that easy, because not only do you got to get Universal to sign off, not only do you need to get Drew Struzan to sign off, you need Christopher Lloyd, who plays Doc in the movie, and Michael J. Fox, who plays Marty McFly, to sign off on this and to agree. The fact that we got him, I feel like it brought it full circle, and now I can die happy. So this is the cover shirt. It's now available here on the Hundreds TV. As you're watching, you can buy it. And it comes in burgundy, this heather gray, and of course black. The next t-shirt is Cafe 80s. This one is for the real Back to the Future nerds. Cafe 80s was a restaurant or a cafe in the second Back to the Future movie, which was supposed to take place in the future in 2015. They made that movie in the 80s, and back then there were a lot of these sentimental, nostalgic diners, like 50s diners. And so they just imagined that in the year 2015, that there would be these diners around that would harken back to the good old 80s, the decade of Ronald Reagan and MTV. The Cafe 80s is a pivotal scene in Back to the Future 2. It's where Marty runs into his future son. It's where Marty runs into Biff and Griff. It's a crest back, which means that this graphic is on the front crest of the shirt and on the back as well. We pretty much kept the Cafe 80s logo intact. We just turned this circle into a solid bomb. That's what we call the silhouette of our atom bomb. So Cafe 80s, it says the Hundreds under it. If you wear this, you really know Back to the Future. You really appreciate the Hundreds. You really see me. So thank you. The next shirt from Back to the Hundreds Part 2, which you can buy right now here on the Hundreds TV, is the DeLorean Arrival shirt. Now, this was, I guess you could say, less of a collaboration, more a piece of art that I personally worked on. Some of them were pretty straightforward. You know, we're using the movie poster on a shirt, or we're gonna take Griff's hoverboard logo and slap it on the back of a hoodie. This shirt, DeLorean Arrival, is all original art that I collaged together to signify and embody this really pivotal moment of the film series where Doc writes Marty this letter from the past. That was maybe the point where people realized that this movie was really about a friendship between Doc and Marty, and it was not so much about DeLoreans and Nikes and the future and all this. So this is the DeLorean Arrival shirt. It's available in black and navy, and there's also a forest green. It's one of my favorite pieces from the collection. It means a lot to me. No Rhodes. This is the No Rhodes t-shirt. You can buy it right now on the Hundreds TV. This is part of Back to the Hundreds Part 2, our official collaboration with Back to the Future. If you look at it, it's borrowed artwork from some classic Back to the Future movie posters, but I made it monochromatic, and then I sprinkled the stars in the sky all over the shirt like an all-over print. And so there's a black version of this shirt, there's a navy version of this shirt. On the crest, we have the official logo lockup of Back to the Hundreds 2. And again, I'm just using colors that are really reflective of what the Hundreds aesthetic looks like. White on black shirts, been doing it since 2003. Pink on navy, you know, taking a base, a classic color, and then offsetting it with a pastel or a bright color. So this is very the Hundreds, and it's very much Back to the Future, but you'll never see anything else like this out there, and this is only available through the Hundreds and through Back to the Hundreds 2. I already ran through this graphic before, but we also put it onto a long sleeve. This is the cover from Back to the Future 2. And so you can buy this right now here on the Hundreds TV. It comes in white, gray, and black. Of course, we're gonna throw that logo lockup on hoodies. Again, incorporating Back to the Future's official logo with the Hundreds, and also throwing the 2 in there so people know that this is part of the 2020 collaboration we've done with Back to the Future, as opposed to the first one we did in 2015. The Pitbull hoodie, again, the Pitbull graphic that you know from the t-shirt. This originally said Pitbull in the reference on Griff's hoverboard. We changed it to say the Hundreds, and that Pitbull character is massive on the back. Of all the colors, there's black and forest. I love this gray one the most. I actually pulled this one for myself. For whatever reason, the cartoon just looks really strong on this heather gray. There are a few cut and sew pieces in Back to the Hundreds Part 2. The first one I'm going to begin with is Doc Brown's shirt from Back to the Future 2. If you don't know, Back to the Future is a trilogy. There's 3 of them. The first one was made in the early 80s and came out in 1985. And they really had not planned a sequel The movie was so successful that year that they decided that they should follow it up with a part 2 and a part 3. And so for the next few years, they simultaneously filmed both Back to the Future 2 and 3 at the same time. And so there are kind of some hidden references to each other throughout both of those movies. One of them is Doc Brown is wearing this shirt. It's a long sleeve, but we turn it into a short sleeve. He's wearing it throughout Back to the Future Part 2. And if you look at it closely, it is a scene of a locomotive. And so that was actually a foreshadowing or a nod to Back to the Future 3, which was a Western. And there is a scene with a locomotive and with the DeLorean. Instead of one of the horses, we swapped it out for the flying DeLorean. You know, they would have never done this in the movie. It would have been too on the nose, but just to tie it all together and for the storytelling. So again, if you're a die-hard Back to the Future fan, you probably recognize this shirt as Doc's shirt, but even if you don't, it's just a cool looking shirt just to wear, especially in the summer. Super lightweight and really cool artwork. If you look up close, it says the hundreds on the train. You see the DeLorean, and so it's just a cool conversation piece. The other cut and sew piece we have from Back to the Hundreds too is Marty's denim jacket. Now, Marty wears this throughout the first movie. We did a version of this in 2015 for the original Back to the Hundreds collaboration, but we modernized it for 2015, and so it wasn't an exact replica. This time around, I thought 2020 could actually work well with the original silhouette, the original design, and so we did it down to the paisley lining, which we've kind of swapped out with some solid bombs inside of the Buddha droplets. But we use the same exact black denim wash, the indigo denim wash. It's got the same treatment to it, which back then at the time was probably known as more of an acid wash. Today, we call it all different kinds of washes. The jacket itself comes with Marty's pins. If you remember the movie and look closely, he had this guitar. He had this pin on it that said Art and Revolution. Early on in the hundreds, we had a shirt that used that graphic Art and Revolution on it. If you're a Back to the Future fan, if you're the hundreds fan, and also if you're just kind of like a vintage denim junkie, you're gonna really appreciate this. This actual piece was a guest jacket. It's very hard and difficult to come by, even online, just to find reference photos of it. It's impossible. We feel like we hit it. We got it exactly down to a T without having too much access to reference material. This is Marty's jacket. You can buy it right now here on the Hundreds TV. I know this piece is flying fast. And we also have this tote bag, which people love. You know, you can't have enough tote bags. Again, with the logo lockup, Back to the Hundreds 2 on it. And on the back, we have the time control switchboard from the DeLorean. Oh, and one more thing. Back to the Hundreds is not concluded yet. So if you remember, Back to the Future came in 3 installments, 1, 2, and 3. This is the second part. There's actually a third part. So there is another drop of Back to the Hundreds coming at some point this year, sooner than later. And this might be the first place that I'll announce it, that we have some skateboard decks, we have a few more pieces, and some things that I know people really, really want and we're looking forward to. So this project is to be concluded. Coming soon, Back to the Hundreds, Part 3. Look out for that. Thanks for watching, dropping in. I'm Bobby Hundreds. And up next is Night Terrors. Stick around here on the Hundreds TV. Our crew is gonna, what are we gonna play tonight?
We're racing DeLoreans on Grand Theft Auto.
Our crew is gonna sit around, just chat, play games. They're gonna race DeLoreans on Grand Theft Auto. Very Back to the Hundreds, very Back to the Future. But yeah, just to lock up this entire collaboration. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned to the Hundreds TV. I'll see you guys next week.
Okay, so what we should